a day. What a day. Okay. We are today we have in for a treat. Thanks you guys hit the like button as you come in. I have Gardis Watts with me and Big Mike. Oh no, I think I just lost Big Mike. There he goes. So I have Gardis Watts and Big Mike with me. I'm gonna wait for Big Mike to reconnect. And we're gonna talk about Daley versus Daley. Now we're talking about Richard M. Daley and Richard J. Daley. If I'm recalling, Richard M. Daley is wait a minute now. Richard M. Daley is the son. So let's bring him on up. We're gonna talk about Richard M. and Richard J. Why do I feel like Richard? Wait a minute, do I have it wrong? Yep, I'm bringing up Gardis and Big Mike. Bring him on up because I'm already messing up. Love you guys. Hit the like. Hey, Big Mike. Hey, Gardis. You're live.
Hey y'all.
I feel honored to be in the same chat, same live with Gardis. This guy's a historic, walking encyclopedia. It's an honor.
I appreciate it, but you have a lot of political knowledge that I don't have. So if you don't mind sharing it with me and the others, that would be great, and it would be an honor to be in the same presence as you too.
Thank you. I really
I'm telling
appreciate
you,
it.
both of you guys, I double down on that. You guys are amazing. So I'll let you guys have the floor. But we were talking daily versus daily, and
Hmm. What's the
they
format of this?
um what I would like you guys to pick it. We didn't even think about it. I didn't think
Hmm.
about it, but I guess what were they? What was Richard M versus Richard J known for? I looked up some things. Um,
Hmm.
they called Richard have J correct. They call him the boss, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Big
Right.
da- so big. We said Daddy Daily or Older Man
Hmm.
Daily.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the boss, and Richard M. He was more like what were their policies like? Like what was the difference between the two? Even though they were father and son, and I noticed some. I was reading some research that Richard, the son Richards. I don't know how we're supposed to do it. Like how do we describe him? But the son Daily, he lost an election before,
Right.
right?
So the way you can say Boss Daily and Richie Daily. That's
Oh,
what
Richie.
people.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so to understand to understand the political machine of both dailies, you have to go back into the 1930s when Anton Cermak was mayor. You know, the Cermak Street in Chicago that's named after Anton Cermak. And so he originally started the patronage system of the political machine that you currently see some signs of it today. And he was also a mentor to Richard J. Daley. I think it was during that time when Anton Cermak had beat out Big Bill Thompson, who was the last Republican mayor of Chicago. Anton Cermak died assassinated for a bullet that was meant for Franklin Roosevelt, and so he ended up being killed. But that political machine was originated, like the foundation of it, uh, started with Anton Cermak. So then Martin Kinley, fast forward to the 1950s. Martin Kinley was the mayor, but he was very, very weak. And so he was an Irish, and the Irish wanted to keep control of City Hall. At that time, Daley was the president of the Cook County Democratic Party. And it's similar to what you're seeing now with the whole Thornton Township saga with Napoleon Harris being the committeeman and he's putting together this slate. Well, that happened in 1955 when Boss Daley had put together this slate where they actually threw Martin Kinley off the ballot and had him be the nominee, and he actually won in April of 1955 as mayor of Chicago. Now, this is where he took the Anton Cermak model and basically put it on steroids. And he started recruiting, machine bosses, like precinct captains and all of those things to maintain his power. And the way he rewarded these people is through patronage jobs, or they got contracts to work for the city. And he kept that power going on from 55 to 76 when he died in his doctor's office of a heart attack. And then the difference between Richard M. Daley, the son, Richie Daley, is that the Shackman Decree was introduced, and it was introduced by a law firm called Miller Shackman and Bean. They're located off 180th and LaSalle in downtown Chicago. They were able to get a federal judge to put together, um, put an order in that would eliminate or abolish patronage hiring and firing. So when you look at the Richie Daley's political machine today, back in his time, it was very different in that he had to use other political ways or political strategy to get rid of um, people that were against his agenda. And I think I talked about this a while back, where we looked at Jesus Chuy Garcia, who was a major opponent rather of Richie Daley machine, and they put together the Hispanic Democratic Organization, and they redistrict his um, his district to move UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, outside of Chuy Garcia's district, which was his main voting base, and they put it in somebody else's district, and they put his district in with a block of voters. Most likely, I think they were white voters, and they voted him out. So they had to do redistricting in terms of getting rid of political opponents, which is still used to this day. An example of that recently, not recently, but with Rahm Emanuel redistrict Bob Fioretti's district, and Bob Fioretti ended up not being the alderman anymore because he ended up losing. Um, so you see this a lot as a political strategy. When you want to look at the downtown of Chicago, that was developed under Daley, Richard Boss Daley, and but they were developed in very different ways. So Boss Daley used a lot of the funds that were coming from the Kennedy administration as well as the Johnson administration to build up downtown Chicago. Richie Daley, he came in at the tail end of the Reagan administration and into the Bush administration, where there was a big cut in cities getting funding to build up cities. So what he used is the TIF fund. So he started making downtown a TIF district, and he used the TIF districts to build up downtown to what it is today. I can go on and on and on, but I'll give Gardis some time to speak.
Wow.
Oh,
I can't hear you. I think I'm on mute.
Oh
Or I
no,
think someone's on mute.
go. We can hear you. Gardis, did you want to? So before you, Gardis goes on. Could you tell us what the TIF fund is? Because we hear that a lot in
Hmm.
Thornton Township.
TIF stands for tax increment financing. And the way how it works is uh, there's a committee. At least that's how it works in Chicago. I don't know if it works the same way in the suburbs, but there's a committee that will designate a certain area a TIF district based on the income in that area, and that the whole point, the whole purpose is to build development, to build to build development in blighted areas. And so the way it works is it's called tax increment financing for a reason, because the taxpayer won't see the huge increase in their taxes right away, but it will be increment as the years pass to fund for the development of new projects in blighted areas that the taxpayers live in.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks, Big Mike. Gardis, do you have anything to add to that about?
well, to add on to what Big Mike said about both Richard Joseph Daley, who is Boss Daley, and Richard Michael Daley, um, which is what do they call it? Richie Daley. I was
Mhm.
gonna call him. I was gonna call him Daley the Younger. But um, Richard J. Daley or Boss Daley, just like his son Richard M. Daley, both basically started their political careers in Illinois state politics. Whereas you have Richard J. Daley, who was basically an Illinois senator, and Richard M. Daley, who was actually in Illinois. He was in the Illinois Congress as well. And so you got both of these people kind of following, almost the same political paths. However, the thing about Jay Daley, Old Man Daley, is he was a lot more shrewder in his politics and was able to consolidate a lot of power into his own camp. Just like Big Mike said, he took the strategy of Anton Cermak and certain other mayors before him, and basically consolidated a lot of the power of the city council to basically kind of gear towards him. Um, if I'm not mistaken, he's probably one of his more noted things in 1955 when he became mayor of Chicago was to have the city council on his side. Um, Many people feel that was the birth of the Daley machine. When you're talking about supporting candidates in certain districts, in certain areas, and basically um, catering to them so they can owe favors to you, so they can get that vote in the city council when Daley wants to push an initiative towards towards the city, or whatever he wants to do. So Old Man Daley basically was a very shrewd politician. Um, think of basically kind of like Frank Zuccarelli on a larger level, where we all know Frank kind of supported a lot of mayors and aldermen and trustees in the area, which garnered him a lot of that political power. Jay Daley was kind of like that same instance, but on a huge level. When you're talking about supporting Illinois senators, governors, and even one of the things Big Mike also mentioned was the presidency and Kennedy. Now his relationship with 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 uh with John Kennedy was a little shaky, but he still had good ties with Robert Kennedy and the rest of the Kennedy family. His connections was more with Lyndon Johnson, and a lot of times the Democratic person who runs for the president typically meets Richard J. Daley, to kind of garner those votes from Chicago. So he has like very much huge political ties, not just in Chicago, but around the country as well. So this is what kind of like made uh, Big Boss Daley very powerful, because of the fact that he can call presidents and garner support from Washington. But even in the sense of Illinois politics, and see, this is why downstate politicians hate Cook County Democrats, because of the fact that a lot of the power in Illinois actually resides in the Chicagoland area or Cook County. And when you think about the map of Illinois geographically, basically the main area that's Democrat is just the Chicagoland area. If you take a look at the geographical map of Illinois, the rest of it is basically Republican, with the exception of probably areas in Springfield and maybe Rockford as well. But the entire state is the rest of the state is Republican. And this is where dividing lines get drawn, and it gets hardened, especially when Daley comes in, because many downstate Republicans, uh, you know, hate Daley because of the fact that, he has a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen in his pocket that are in the Illinois General Assembly. And, he can easily sway people to, get state laws passed that may be in favor of, excuse me, may be in favor of Chicago. So, a couple of the things that Daley has done, Richard J. Daley has done during this time is, he helped build O'Hare International Airport, constructed the Sears Tower, McCormick Place. Um, he's also expanded the University of Chicago, but at the expense of the Black residents of the Woodlawn area, which was a huge political fight, which involved, uh, the Woodlawn organization. And they brought like several activists like Saul Alinsky, who um, always jousted at Daley, Richard J. Daley as well. But even in those senses, even in those instances, uh, Daley was able to kind of survive some of his controversies, not just the University of Chicago issue, but uh, the 1968 Democratic Convention, where you had the Chicago Five, which include Bobby Seals being arrested protesting at the Democratic National Convention. And many people felt like Daley kind of knew that these protests were coming. And there was basically orders to shoot to kill any protesters. You even go back to the segregation of Black folks in the city. And one of the reasons why Chicago is one of the most segregated cities, if not the most segregated cities in the country, is the fact that Daley basically expanded the housing projects to contain a lot of Black people in certain areas. So when you look at the population of Black Chicago, uh, about 70% of them was concentrated in those particular projects. Now you still had Bronzeville and Black spread, across various parts of the West Side and South Side, but Daley basically, old man Daley was basically kind of like the person who basically solidified that. And so, but yet, he's able to survive a lot of these controversies and several others that, I can't think off the top of my head. Now, when you think about Richard M. Daley, the son, um, he has an interesting rise to the mayorship because Richie, as Big Mike called him, Richie basically was kind of a and yeah, it's true. He kind of lived off of his old man's name. He did have some sort of political career in the Illinois Senate, but a lot of his Illinois Senate classmates kind of ragged him about living off his old man's name. Uh, Many people calling him dumb, including Harold Washington, and you know just basically kind of like being an arrogant, and this is not my words. This is words of some of his colleagues. Being an arrogant prick who just lives off of his daddy's name. But somehow he wins. He wins the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Now, mind you, Daley, Richie is he's a lawyer by profession. Um, Law degree from I think DePaul, but from my understanding, he had to take the bar like 3 times or something like that, and he's basically I don't think he's ever seen a courtroom in his whole attorney, a career as an attorney. But yet he wins the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Explain that. But and while he was in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, he did run for mayor. I think you mentioned that, Berg. He ran for mayor um, when in Harold Washington's first run, and he lost in the primary. Came in third behind Jane Byrne and Harold Washington, and so many people were kind of, done with the Daleys as a family. It looked like at that point, and that's only because Harold Washington was able to garner the support of the blacks and Latinos in Chicago, who were basically kind of turning against the Daley machine at some point. And from my perspective, Washington was probably the only person that I felt that could. I wouldn't say he completely broke the machine, but he definitely went around it with the support of the blacks and Latinos, and it garnered him, being the mayor. Now, unfortunately, he had to fight against the city council, which was led by Edward Doliak, uh, and um, and then I keep
Ed
forgetting.
Burke.
Yeah,
Ed
yeah, Ed
Burke.
Burke. Yeah, Ed Burke. Because they were basically disciples of Old Man Daley, and so they wanted to keep that power in place. And so Washington had to basically fight them off for his whole term and basically go to court to kind of redistrict. So when the midterms came towards the second election, he was able to redistrict and garner the city council in his favor. But unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see the fruits of that after Washington died in 87. But this gave Richard M. Daley an opportunity to rerun again because of the fact that black political power had splintered when Harold Washington died. Because unfortunately, Eugene Sawyer was not a strong leader like Harold, and um, several black politicians, for some reason or another, didn't want to run. And unfortunately, Richard M. Daley, won the election in '89 against Sawyer. So we look at the career of Richard M. Daley, and he basically lasts, if I'm not mistaken, more years in office than his old man.
One year more.
Yeah, 1 year
1 year
more.
more. Yeah, I think 21 versus 22.
Yeah,
20.
I believe so. I believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So let me look this up.
I
Richard
think
J. Daley,
I
yeah,
think
50, 55
21.
to 76. That's
Mm.
21. And Richard M. Daley, okay, 23 years. 23
Ooh.
years in office.
Now,
So,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
so I often wondered, because when I was living in the city, I never voted for Richard M. Daley. Never. Um, and I often wondered why he kept winning elections. Like, what is the appeal of this guy? Um, he's done several things that were very controversial. One of the things that I always remember is that he basically reconstructed the whole Chicago public schools. I guess in his
Hmm.
effort to I guess in his effort to kind of like get back at the teachers union, um, he went downstate to help sign a bill where he becomes the head of the Chicago public schools. So before 1995, I think Chicago Public Schools was ran by a superintendent, but he basically had a bill passed in the Illinois Senate now stating that he is the head of the Chicago public schools, and he assigns what they call a CEO, which is the current structure of a CPS right now. And it gave him more latitude to make financial decisions instead of trying to push it off on the superintendent or whoever is the finance director of Chicago Public Schools. So The current construction of CPS is because of Richard M. Daley and the bill that he pushed to do this. Now, before Daley became mayor, during his time as state's attorney, he was connected to a scandal, the John Burge scandal, because he was basically the state's attorney, and many people had called his office about a certain group of cops who was under Commander Burge, who were torturing mostly black males into falsely confessing, several homicides and crimes. Many spent, more than 20 years in jail, and some of them, I believe most of them are off, but there are still some who are still trying to fight for their freedom because they were unjustly incarcerated through the John Burge era. But Richard M. Daley, was the state's attorneys who basically turned a blind eye to this whole thing. So, wondering why uh, Daley kept winning elections. Oh, and we're not going to talk about the hired truck scandal and the Meg's Field incident, which he kind of survived. I don't know why, but what I started to find out, I talked to a pastor in the Chicago area some years ago while Daley was in office, and he told me that Daley has a lot of the black pastors on the city payroll. And I asked, why does he have black pastors on the city payroll? Well, basically, he garners votes from the black community because of that. So when you think about Harold Washington's death and the decapitation of black politics at that time, you still had a significant amount of black people that still lived in Chicago. And the thing was that in order to draw that attention to him, he had to go talk to the pastors because, what do black folks basically do on Sundays? We go to church. And even in the sense that even if you don't go to church, the pastor still has an ear to the community, because in a lot of cases, the pastor is actually the person, in some cases, he's the boots on the ground. And he has the audience on Sundays and sometimes Saturdays to kind of sway people, not necessarily tell people who to vote for, because according to ethics, church and state, churches aren't supposed to be, grounds for campaigning, but we all know that's not true in some cases. But that's what happens. Daley was basically able to pay these pastors to kind of promote his name for mayor. So that's basically one of the reasons why Daley garnered especially so many black votes. And 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 secondly too, Daley never faced a lot of strong candidates in his mayoral elections, which was probably another reason why. Many people were faced with certain things and certain I guess what I'm saying is that certain candidates who did want to run against Daley just didn't feel it was worth it because of the fact that um this is from my understanding, the Daley campaign, they played dirty and they played low. So when you think about a strong candidate who might run and then you get some dirt up on them, then you just decide to say, hey, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm not going to run against him. So probably two of many reasons why Daley was in power for 23 years in Chicago. But I'll stop there if you have any questions or if Big Mike want to, add to that.
Well, I found something interesting because as you guys are talking, I'm putting it on the screen, and this conversation is interesting. Richard M. Daley is back in practice. Did you guys know that? I didn't know.
Yeah, he works at Cat Nugent,
This,
one of the big Chicago law firms
this
downtown.
is so. Do you think he could help Thornton Township out with this,
Oh,
with
I
this
think he does.
elector?
I think he does litigation. Uh, I think he
Oh,
does that.
okay. I'm about to say this would be if Richard M. Daley walked in to help with this electoral board, this would be something to see. This would be interesting. Okay. You want to add anything, Big Mike?
No, I think Gardis again hit the nail on the head on all of those things. I didn't get into that much detail, but I'm glad he did. Um, only thing I would add is that Paul Vallis and
Mm-hmm.
Gary Chico were like the first ones that he appointed to be over the school board, or not school board. I'm sorry, the CPS,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually went in and did a lot of major reforms. Um, but I think Daley ended up firing them and replaced them with Arnie Duncan.
Oh yes, yes, I remember that. Okay. This is interesting because it's two things that while we've been talking, I put on our list. I knew nothing about Mr. Mayor Cermak, uh, and Roosevelt and the assassination. That we're gonna have to talk about that. And then speaking of the Chicago School Public School Board, we're still Chicago. Is it? Would that be the Chicago School Board or the Chicago's Teacher Union? Am I getting them
No, those are two
confused?
different things.
Okay,
Those are two different things.
okay. Oh, thank you for correcting me because just something interesting, a little bit off subject. If you guys heard today, they thought ICE was going into the schools, and they found out it was
Yeah, I
Secret
did read about
Service.
that. They
Okay.
refused them. They refused them entry into the schools. I read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's like, would that be on the teachers union or the school board to look into?
Uh, well, um, it's really. I don't even think it's on the teachers union. It's more so on the school board
Mm-hmm.
because the school board is the one that puts in policies. Correct me if I'm wrong, artist. The school board puts in policies, um, like for instance, who gets clearance to go into the schools or not, and the teachers union is more so the organization that's fighting for the pay and environmental protections or so for teachers.
You are correct.
Okay. Um, I also want to go back to what you guys were saying about the projects. So, or about CHA or the housing.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
Richard J. Daley, did he technically start with the development of the projects, would you say?
Rich
I read.
old man Daily, old man Daily. Sorry to interrupt.
Mm-mm, you're good.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. No, please.
Old man Daily built them. Richie Daly tore them down.
Whoa. Hmm.
Yeah, I
I
didn't.
did.
I didn't. Yeah, you know what? He's right. I didn't think about that. He is actually absolutely correct. With maybe the exception of Cabrini Green, because I think a Cabrini Green was originally for the Italian immigrants at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
The row houses were, but he used funds from the some act in the 1950s. I know they used funds from the Interstate Highway Act of 1956 to build the Bishop Ford and the Dan Ryan Expressway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
Um, but there's some funds in the 1950s to start building up those high rises, and they were following the Le Crucible, which is a French term for high rise development, which was popular back at that time to build these high rises to clean up the slums that was going on, that was around. Um, and this was during the time when he was trying to make Chicago a global city. But yeah, Papa Daly or Old Man Daly built them. Richie Daly tore them down.
Whoa. That. Thank you for clarifying that. I got maybe two more questions I wrote on my notepad, but would you mind if we watch like 2 minutes of this video about when he started building the projects? It's from WTTW, and you guys can give us the input.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Chicagoans saw blocks surrounding City Hall transform, and a new crop of skyscrapers went up, filling out the city's skyline. For people thinking of fleeing to the suburbs, Daley offered a thrilling alternative, a 3-acre complex known as Marina City.
On the very site where
I want to pause it right there. Have you guys ever? I've never been in a marina city. Have you ever parked up there or been in there? Have you ever seen anything in there?
I had a supervisor that lived in Marina City when I was working at one of the law firms.
Mm, this is interesting. Okay, I'm gonna continue.
Chicago began. A city within a city has been built.
Tubular towers rising over the river with 900 apartments and its own marina.
This self-contained city, again, had an answer to people leaving the city for suburbia. And Marina City is an answer.
For businesses eyeing the suburbs, the answer was the newly opened McCormick Place, the nation's biggest convention hall. But in most respects, Daley's vision focused on the Loop Business District.
The mayor was known as a builder. The skyscrapers, the parks, the trees, everything that the mayor was doing was about downtown. And that's white downtown. That's wealthy downtown.
This sort of sounds like trickle down economics in some ways, right? You put all the resources here and then it's going to trickle down to the neighborhoods. Well, how much trickles down? Are they just going to collect the scraps that fall off the table?
But Daley couldn't just ignore the outlying neighborhoods. That spring, within a stone's throw of the Loop, he focused on the Francis Cabrini homes. The cluster of public housing units was home to a melting pot of cultures, but it was now overflowing.
You could look at these outlying areas that were very, very blighted within a mile of Lakeshore Drive. People did not have indoor plumbing. So you're going to build a tall tower with bathrooms and all brand new paint and brand new things for these people who live here. God bless you, Mayor Daley, is what most people probably thought.
Cabrini would eventually include 15 high-rise public housing apartment buildings. But as the city's black population doubled in number, more would soon migrate to Cabrini and more whites would flee.
It was very racist when I came up. You were taught, you let one move in, the whole neighborhood goes. So
Just wanted to pause right there. Do you guys have anything to say? It's only 2 minutes left, but that was interesting. Do you think the people that moved to Cabrini Green had hope at that time? You're downtown. You're right on Lakeshore
Well,
Drive.
um, the original um, heads of the CHA, I forgot her name, and it was a guy, Robert Taylor, that they originally named the project, the Southside projects after him. They were against it. They didn't want the high rises. They were looking at this as a um, ticking time bomb ready to explode. They were against it, but they were ignored. Uh, on the surface, though, I mean, just looking at this video, it's not that much different than Pruitt-Igoe, the projects in St. Louis, where people thought that they were moving into a really nice, uh, building, and it was in the beginning. Yes, I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was, but it was made with cheap material, and it wasn't maintained, and it was deemed to fail um, as the years passed.
Mm. Yeah, I know some families that use it as generational housing, and I remember they said
Hmm.
never did they see it coming to this point. If we look in, they said at one point it was mixed races there. Okay,
So,
go
so,
ahead.
so what happened is that the CHA started enforcing policies in the 1960s where you had to be really poor to live in these units, and so people with higher incomes had to leave. And eventually, they did leave because it started becoming really the crime started to become really rampant there. And so, what you have is people from the lowest. socioeconomic class living amongst each other. And as William Julius Wilson once called it, he called it the permanent underclass. And that's what you had.
Wow. Thank you, Big Mike. Okay, a couple of more seconds. Now, did would that be Angela? No, that's wrong. That wasn't her name. I was looking for the name of the woman. Okay, let's continue.
Oh, that was under Old Man Daley.
As the city looked to public housing as the answer, the Racial Balancing Act would become more complicated for the mayor.
One of the really important themes, I think, that Daley had to deal with was this racial tension. A huge and growing black population running out of space, and where are they going to go? And the neighboring white population said, well, you're not coming here.
Chicago's black population would have been moving into an ever more restricted geographic area.
The densest overcrowding within the Black Belt, on the city's south side, was a 6-mile stretch of land cynically dubbed the Federal Street Slums.
Outsiders are looking at it as a ghetto, as a slum. They look at it as a place with lots of trash or overcrowded. Of course, that overcrowdedness is completely manufactured by the inability of people to move out because of mob violence
Can I say
or
something?
realtors' pacts
Absolutely.
not to
Can I
sell
say
to black
something?
people.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you go. Go right ahead.
Well, so this is an example of when Gardis was giving a presentation about Dr. Martin Luther King,
Mm.
and I was in the comments talking about the difference between Southern racism and Northern racism. This is exactly what I meant by Northern racism, and that is really residential. It's not as blatant as Southern racism. And though the policies in the 1960s or the laws in the 1960s um, helped fight Southern racism, a lot of it didn't touch on Northern racism, which is again housing uh, segregation. Actually, what put a dent in Northern racism is a court case called Control versus CHA, where Dorothy Control, a CHA resident, sued the Chicago Housing Authority on the grounds of housing discrimination. And that actually put a dent into the racism that you saw in the North. And so it just, I just wanted to put that out there. And, but yeah, um, and I also wanted to add too that the lady that was over the CHA, her name was Elizabeth Wood.
Thank you, Big Mike. I just wanted to go over. Thank you for telling us about Dorothy Control versus the Chicago
It's
Housing.
Control.
Good
It's French.
French. Good, and I should know that. My my dad's Creole. I should know that. Good Control. Okay, I'll stop. In Chicago Housing Authority, residents brought a suit against the CHA, right? And then it started this whole movement. It was a long running case that in 1987 resulted in HUD taking over the CHA for 20 years and the formation of the Gatral, I hope I'm saying the right, project in which public housing families were relocated to the suburbs. Is that something we saw here in Riverdale, Dalton, Southland?
Well, that's yes. And so what happened was that after that court case, the Supreme Court says that you cannot continue to build public housing in predominantly black neighborhoods. That every public housing unit that you build or building that you build in the black neighborhood, you have to also build in the white neighborhood. So the CHA just stopped building and stopped maintaining the buildings, which led to HUD taking over.
Wow. Now that doesn't seem right, but okay. So, does that get down? I guess we got one more minute of this video, But before we go there, like you were saying, it's residential. So
Right.
instead of the southern states where it's just all over the southern county or the the state, it here it's like as long as you don't come, I'm just paraphrasing. You don't come over here, we don't got a problem. Sort of
Right. So
like,
let me
mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I was like, maybe you could enlighten me. I used to work at Illinois Institute of Technology. Stateway, Ickies, like I was telling you, they would never come and recruit any of those kids. And some of the kids from there couldn't go over across from Sox Park. Was that Bridgeport?
Bridgeport.
It was a
Bridgeport.
huge thing about going over there. It was not a lot of
Well,
black people that lived over there.
I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it to in this quote that a famous lawyer named Alexander Potleff has said: "In the South, black people can live close, but they can't get high positions. In the North, black people can get high positions, but they can't live close."
Okay. That
And
summed it up.
when you look at school, and I also want to add this too. When you look at residency with schools, right? So let's say you live in Dalton and you want to send your kid to HF, Home with Flossmoor, or you want to send your kid to New Trier High School in Winnetka. There are boundaries, right? You have to live within the certain boundaries to be able to go to those schools. That was ingrained in Northern racism to prevent blacks from going to schools with white kids. And that's still like that today, or not like that today, blatant, but that policy still exists where you have kids who are trying to go to, let's say you have a kid and you're trying to get them to go to HF, they can't because they're not within the residential boundaries. That is a stem from Northern racism back in the day.
Wow. Thank you for clarifying that. You want to add anything, Gardis?
Well, the thing about the high rises, because this is another this is probably stems to another topic, but I want to touch on it for a minute. During that time, Richard J. Daley, Boss Daley, had to deal with a rising population of black people coming to Chicago, and that's due to the Great Migration. Now, Great Migration basically had two phases. It had the first phase was um, blacks coming into the northern and western cities uh, after World War One, which ended in I think 1915 or so. And then there was a big second Great Migration that came after World War Two, which ended in 1945, I believe. But even during those times, there were a fluctuation of blacks from the southern states coming up north. Daley basically had to kind of deal with the second migration. And when you look at the history of families that came to this city, you find that blacks that came from the first migration were either moved into certain sections like Bronzeville to live in. However, they did have houses, the kind of like row houses, or even their own house. And so they actually lived in particular houses. Now, people like my grandfather, who came up here kind of during the end of the first migration, he actually came up here and was actually able to get a house that wasn't in Bronzeville. He actually was able to purchase a house in Morgan Park. Now, the thing is that back then he did have to stay over his cousins in Bronzeville for a minute because he did have some family members that lived here, but he was able to start a trucking company and basically make a lot of money off of it because of the New Deal. and was able to kind of get a house. He was basically one of the first blacks to be in that particular area. Um, when you talk about the second Great Migration, many of the blacks that came up from the South were pushed into these high-rise projects. So this is where you get families from the second Great Migration coming in, and they're being moved into places like Cabrini Green and Robert Taylor and any other of the projects that basically was built for them. So because obviously, just think about it on a different scale where Brandon Johnson has to find some kind of solution to deal with the growing migrant issue that that's happening in Chicago right now, and where they're going to place these not blacks, but place these migrants since they were coming in like 2-3 years ago. Well, Daley had kind of like the same issue um with many blacks coming in from the South, moving up to Chicago. Now, what's also interesting, and this is something that I remember my father had told me a couple of years ago about this, because it's a small kind of like housing projects called the Racing Courts that they built in Morgan Park when Morgan Park started to get progressively more black. And my grandfather, who, like I said, who had his own business and, made a decent amount of money as a black person, was able to take care of his family and everything like that. Him and a couple of I would even call it elitist blacks were actually opposed to them building the racing courts. Now, these were black folks. And, I remember my father, he told me when he was little, he was asking like, why are you opposed to that? There's just more black people coming in. And basically my grandfather told him, he said, because they're going to bring in crime. They're going to bring in all kind of riffraff into this particular area. And I guess the elitist blacks in that particular area just didn't want the poor Southerners or, even the poor blacks to be coming into their particular area of Morgan Park. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story that my dad told me about my grandfather who, like I said, he used to have dinner with like doctors and lawyers, despite the fact that he only had an 8th grade education, but yet he was able to start his own trucking company. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the only thing I can add right now.
And it's interesting because growing up, we always, in my area, Morgan Park was the best school, the best area. So I didn't even know about Racine Courts. I just sort of put up a little link from Young Will. He's been covering Racine Courts lately. Um, this is interesting. Could they have seen what the future was going to bring? Could your grandfather have seen, hey,
I think he did. I think he kind of saw that, um, in a sense, and that's why he basically opposed to them actually building the racing courts in the area that he lived in,
mm,
because he might have observed what was happening, um, beforehand, when Daley was building up the high rises in Cabrini Greens and Robert Taylor, and kind of he kind of saw that was going to be coming to the far south side of Chicago.
yeah, yeah. Um, I guess we could go to the part on where Big Mike said, uh, Richard M. Daley tore it down. So so that's one of the titles of this WTTW story, you guys. It's called The Boss. and the bulldozer. And it almost sums up, but it doesn't go into detail about what Richard M. Daley did, like Big Mike told us. It's just like about Richard J. Daley building up. I want to go to where Richard Richie. Let's do that. Richie, not old man Daley, but Richie. Uh, he decided that he was going to in 1999. Mayor Richie Daley, that's the son, boldly promised to transform public housing in Chicago, in part by tearing down the high-rise housing projects that line the city's expressways and surround the loop. How do y'all think that the people that oppose, did you feel like maybe Richie felt like I could leave my dad's ideals behind and move forward with what I want to do? I've proven myself. I've been repeated mayor after mayor back to back. How do you think his state of mind was with doing this?
Well, I don't think he had his father's. I mean, I'm welcome any disagreement on this. I don't think he had his father's um, legacy in his mind when he decided to tear him down. Um, so really, I think he did it because um, the projects were an eyesore. There had a lot of violence going on, and one of the violence that gained national attention is the Dantrell Davis killing at Cabrini Green, and that right there is what led to him wanting to come up with an idea, a plan to turn them into mixed income communities. And it also could mean as well that Cabrini Green was really close to the Gold Coast. And so a lot of people who lived in the Gold Coast, they were well off. They expressed major uh, frustrations about Cabrini Green. But you could also argue as well that a lot of developers saw the land as profit, and you started seeing a lot of public-private partnerships going on. A lot of the land that's supposed to house mixed income have stores. Like there's a Target on some of the Cabrini Green lot. There's a Mariano's off the Jane Addams lot on 39th and King Drive,
It sure is.
and and now you have like um, a tennis court off of some of the Cabrini Green land, where where the developers of that tennis court ended up getting new market tax credits to build there, and that's a whole nother issue right there. But you had a lot of organizations like the Chicago Housing Initiative on keeping the promise ordinance to make sure that they use the land to build mixed income units rather than engaging in these public-private partnerships, which led to the city selling off some of that land to pay down a lot of the debt that the city got itself into. So to answer your question, I think that he didn't have his father's legacy in mind. It was more so about cleaning up the violence that was going on that put Chicago on the national news, and also to engage in ways to bring more revenue into the city.
Now, I was doing a little research and I realized that, and thank you, Big Mike. It was like, I might have it wrong, but Richie Daley, he went from like clerk to what was it over the legal board? I'm sorry, I wrote it down and I lost it. Um, Not the legal board. I'm sorry, I wrote it down.
State's attorney.
State's attorney. Thank you. He
Hmm.
went from, and then he got voted in as a clerk temporarily. Do y'all think he really wanted to be mayor, or he felt his name was Richard M. Daley? He has to be mayor, or it was an easy way to become mayor, or do you think he had a passion for being a mayor? In your personal opinion?
I'll let Gardis take that one.
I mean, I think living off of his dad's name, uh, but also to a lot of the old school politicians who was actually under his dad in the beginning of his mayorship was still there, and so basically they kind of gave him the secrets of obtaining power. Like I was saying before, one of his key one of his key elements of keeping himself in his seat was the black vote at that time, which won Harold Washington, and also too the Latino vote. And he caught on to, like I said, paying the pastors to kind of endorse him and have his congregations endorse him. I think I don't know. I can't really say what was in his head or what his passion was, because obviously, him running for mayor against two strong candidates didn't garner him anything. But he wins elections against weak candidates, and we're talking about the weak candidates he ran against in like his his umpteenth term, or how many terms that he's been Chicago mayor, because I don't think he's beaten any strong political candidate in the history of him running for mayor, which actually includes Eugene Sawyer. So
You don't
I
think
don't know.
you don't think Jane Bird was strong? I'm just because she did run in '87.
Yeah, I mean, well, Harold Washington won that one, right?
Oh, right, yeah. I'm sorry, I got the elections mixed up. I meant to. I think she no, she didn't run in '89. I didn't think she ran in '89, but she did run in '87.
Yeah, she ran in '87, but that was when Washington won. But I mean, like I said, I mean, I think maybe Bobby Rush ran against him, and he couldn't, Bobby Rush couldn't beat him. So that's another political personality that I think couldn't beat Daley, but I don't think he was just a strong enough candidate to to beat Richard M. Daley, since he had taken a hold of the political power in Chicago at that time. I think it was just because Richie was able to garner a lot of support. He got the right people around him. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Rahm Emanuel worked on his campaign. So having a political guy like him, you could probably stay in power for a while. But as far as if he wanted to be mayor, I mean, I'm not sure. But looking at history, I think he kind of stumbled upon it.
Mm.
You also had David Axelrod,
Yeah, he
uh, political. I call that guy a political genius when it comes down to strategy.
Hmm. This is interesting. I'm gonna let you guys, if you have anything to add on. But if not, I got like a rapid fire Q&A with Gardis and Big Mike. I didn't prepare them for it, but you know how nowadays everyone's going by AI and all that stuff. I would like to give you like some answers people have on the internet, and I got this idea from Gardis Watts talking about Martin Luther King Jr. the other day, and you were in the chat, Big Mike. And Big Mike, I
Such a great
saved some
talk, by the way.
questions. Thank you, thank you. Gardis Watts did amazing. I just listened.
Thank
Gardis,
you.
thank you for that. Thank you. And Big Mike, some you had some questions and some were long, and you said you'll be able. So we gotta do a part two on that because they were like, please bring Big Mike on with Gardis regarding Martin Luther King. Um, so some rapid fire questions because this is the idea I got from Gardis when he said it was Martin Luther King. You guys check it out. Revolutionary, dreamer or revolutionary is the that was the topic. And one thing Gardis said, just in a chit chat, He said, if we keep it going on instead of it just being like, I have a dream, this and that, Martin Luther King would be white with the hoses. And he would just explain to us how if we let history just, and no one's here to tell the history, but you can explain it better than me, Gardis. But I took from that, like, if we do not talk about the 1967 speech, I believe it was, of Martin Luther King when he was at the college. Do I have it right, you guys?
What
Oh yeah.
At
what's
Stanford,
the title of that
at,
speech?
at
Oh, the
Stanford.
other America, the other
Yeah, other
Yeah,
America.
America.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like no one talks about that. They only talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech, and it's so important that we talk about the history because
Well, you
it'll
know
get
why they
blurred
only
out.
talk about that? You know why they only talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech and not the other America?
No, tell us, please.
Because it will show contradiction in their speech in their affiliation of adding King to their message. A lot of the people that use King as an example would dislike King today because King was far left than Bernie Sanders. If you don't like Bernie Sanders, you definitely are not going to like Dr. Martin Luther King politically. So the way how I see a lot of people, conservatives and liberals, I see both both spectrums here. They will quote MLK, "I have a dream," to address something that they're trying to persuade the public to vote for or to support, but they fail to cut out exactly what MLK stood for politically. And if they did cut that out, it would show a direct contradiction to what their whole entire message is. That see people, the one thing that a lot of people don't know, not that they don't want you to know, if they don't know themselves, is that MLK believed in what guaranteed housing, guaranteed income. Those are socialist policies,
Mm.
and we're trying to push capitalism. I mean, even with the Trump administration, I'm seeing a lot of push for capitalism. And he just actually signed a resolution to release all FBI files on the MLK assassination, which would be really interesting to
Yeah,
read.
and I I'm glad you brought that up because and I'm sorry. Are you finished? I'm so sorry, Big Mike, because
No, no,
I
no.
got
You
so
go ahead.
excited.
No,
I got
it's you're fine. I just wanted to put that out there and why I wanted to put that out there. That the reason why people only talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech and not the other America, because it will show that okay, yeah, we're celebrating socialism.
I agree. And I actually, you guys, I've learned so much from you. I order every time you guys say a book, I order, I order it, and I just put it on the shelf because I'm like, wait, let me learn a little bit about this. Because I was someone that only went through the "I have a dream" speech. That's what I think of when I think of Martin Luther King. But let's talk, since we're talking about Martin Luther King, if you guys feel comfortable, is it okay if I bring up how Daley responded to the riots in 19 during King's, was it King's assassination? How he responded to the riots in 1968 with the curfew?
Oh,
Yes,
I
sir.
encourage it. I
Yeah.
encourage that.
Okay, let's talk about it. I'll give you guys the floor. I'll put something up. Let me just go to it and let's you guys tell me what you think about it because I think he got a lot of criticism for that on how he handled and he engaged a curfew about that and I'll let you guys take it away. I'll put some on the screen.
You can go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to actually ask you to go because I wanted to learn more on your take on it. I just know that on the South Side, a lot of the stuff wasn't going on mainly because of the Keystone Rangers, um, protecting the businesses there. But I'm to this day still trying to, learn about the riots and a lot of the stuff that went on after the King assassination on the West Side, because I know to this day, and it's been over, it's going on 60 years now, and a lot of that stuff hadn't even been developed. It's still vacant. and it is, and I would definitely be interested in learning your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, most of it, I can't give a detailed analysis of it, but I know a lot of repressive policies. Uh, it gave basically old man Daley kind of like the green light to implement a lot of the repressive policies that we see with the police department. I mean, just think about this too. Uh, Even after the King assassination and the riots that happened, look what happened a couple of months later in the 1968 Democratic National Convention. Like I said earlier, King had orders shoot to kill, the protesters if they needed to. So this kind of introduced a lot of this gave the license for a lot of police misconduct, a lot of repressive policies that the administration um, rained down on, especially against Black people. So I'm sorry I didn't do my research on that particular issue,
Would
but I
would it
know.
be okay if I do some bullet points and then you guys can go from there? Would that help or?
Yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
Okay. So this because Gardis, that was my next question. 1968, the Democratic Convention. We don't talk about that. And I was looking up all the things about Daley and they old man Daley, and they were like he's one of the top 10 best mayors ever to live. But it's so much deeper with you guys bringing all this out. I appreciate you both. So this is just bullet points, and I'll let Gardis and Big Mike take it because I sprung it on them. Mayor Richard J. Daley, that's old man Daley, responded to the 1968 Chicago riots after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. by imposing curfews, calling in the National Guard, and authorizing use of deadly force. Daley imposed a curfew on anyone under 21 years old. He also closed off streets affected by unrest. You guys, I'm sorry. I know I got to pause. That reminds me of Lori raising the bridges from the south side to the north side, but just that part, the unrest. National Guard. Daley called on Illinois Governor Samuel Shapiro to deploy the National Guard. President Lyndon Johnson also sent 5,000 troops to Chicago. Deadly force. Daley, old man Daley, ordered officers to, quote, shoot to kill arsonists and shoot to maim looters. Army personnel used tear gas against mobs. Other responses. Daley banned the sale of liquor, guns, ammunition, and flammable materials in the affected areas. He mobilized thousands of police officers downtown. They always got to protect downtown, you guys, in my opinion. He asked religious and here you guys go. He asked religious and community leaders to call for peace. Okay, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, 68 was a very hot year in regards to protests. I mean, if you look at the 60s in general, it was generally basically a decade of protests. Think about the number of important people that were assassinated in the 60s when you got Kennedy, King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, several people that I'm blanking out on. And then you got the Vietnam War that happens. And part of what escalated the DNC riots later on that year in 68 was mainly anti-Vietnam War protesters. And so this is what Daley was kind of like trying to prepare for, because he saw what was happening in the other cities with these anti-Vietnam War demonstrations. But not only just people who sympathize with the Black Panthers, but then you started seeing other radical groups like the Weathermen Underground and certain other organizations like the Brown Berets, who was a Latino organization who fought against the system as well. and the Young Lords, another Puerto Rican organization. And so you start to see a lot of these different ethnic groups, not just the Black Panthers, but various ethnic groups who are anti-war demonstrators, anti-establishment demonstrators. It's kind of what Fred Hampton, another person who was assassinated in the 60s, talked about his Rainbow Coalition, an idea that was stolen by Jesse Jackson, because Fred Hampton Sr. was the first one to talk about a rainbow coalition of Black, brown, white, and red people to fight against the system, fight against the capitalist structure. And so, yeah, it was interesting. So many of these politicians like Daley and several other politicians across the country had to put a stop to this. And this is why they implement, those policies that that Daley implemented here in Chicago.
Yeah, keep in mind that the King assassination happened on April 4th, 1968, and the DNC was going to happen in the next 4 months from the time of the assassination. This was during the time when Lyndon Johnson had decided that he wasn't going to run for reelection. And there was a divide between Chicago and I forgot the other cities that was competing to have the DNC, competing to host the DNC rather. And when I read things like, well, Daley saying, shoot to kill any arsonist during that King riot, I think what he was thinking was that he wanted to show to the world or show to the nation that Chicago is the best place to have the DNC. And it just didn't look good if you see all of the chaos going on with the riots that was happening.
Wow. I swear I learn more and more about politics with you guys every day. I didn't even put that together. That probably was the cause. 99%. Hmm. Okay. I
In
have
fact,
another. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
there's a politician. I think there's some delay here. Yes, I, I hear your response after I say something, and then that's what's causing a lot of the interruption. So my apologies on that. I forgot the name of the politician, but he called out Daley in the 1968 Democratic National Committee Convention, saying that the chaos in Chicago, we shouldn't even have the DNC here, and he actually wanted to vote to move the DNC to another city.
I'm looking. Wow. And you're fine. I think it's StreamYard lagging us behind. Wow. Okay. I pulled up. Let me see if we can find out who. Yeah, they didn't even want to have it.
It's started with an R. His last name started with an R. Riskoff. I think that's his name.
Ribicoff,
Yeah,
Abraham
that's
Ribicoff.
him. Yeah, that's him.
Ribicoff. Okay. I'm looking him up. Abraham Ribicoff. He was. I hope I got the right one. Is this him?
Yep, that's him.
Senator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. If you guys, this is a free. We just forming. Everybody that joined us, thank you. Thanks for being here, listening, liking the video, share the video. I'm going to do a playlist with Gardis and Big Mike, so you guys can look at all this history. I ordered a book, and I have to ask Big Mike has introduced me to this book, and Gardis to talk about it. It is about David. I'm sorry. Let me bring it on up.
King
Um,
David and Boss Daley.
yeah, what is that about? what?
You know what?
How did this
I have
happen?
I have the book. I have not. I've read the first two chapters. I just never got a chance to finish it. So please excuse me for not finishing that book, because I had got it last year when it first came out, but I have to finish that book.
Wow. Yeah, I'm very interested. in knowing about this, do you have anything to add, Big Mike? You recommended the book, and I had to get it because I'm like, what do these two people have to do with each other?
I think based on how they lead organizations, Daley was the founder, or I don't think he was the founder, he was the leader of the Hamburg Club, which is an Irish game in Bridgeport. Interestingly enough, the Hamburg played a very important role in the 1919 race riots. And to this day, we don't know what Daley's role was in that, in the riot. But the whole entire organizational political leadership strategy that was used for to elevate Daley into power, David Barksdale, who was just King David, uh, was trying to do with the Black disciples. And unfortunately, he died of health causes. I think he died from kidney failure, if I'm not mistaken. And which led to the Black disciples and the Gangster disciples to merge to become the Gangster disciple nation. But yeah, it just shows um, how both men were organizationally sound and create and structuring and becoming more politically involved. But you know, that's what it just shows some similarities between the two men.
This is interesting. So I cannot wait to do this read. And I
I do
have
have
one.
another book though
Well, no,
to
tell us.
recommend.
Tell us about it.
This book just came out like 2 months ago. I just finished reading it. It's called The Daily Show.
I researched that today. I was like, what are they? Okay, the Daily Show. It's an article on it, and the
It's written by Forrest Claypool, who's a Daily Insider who used to work with Axelrod back in the
mhm
1980s.
mhm
And for those who don't know who David Axelrod is, David Axelrod was the chief media strategist. I believe he was for Harold Washington. I know he was for Daley and Obama, but he ran a media a strategy consulting political strategy consulting firm. And so Forrest Claypool is what used to be the president of the Chicago Transit Union. Not Transit Union. I'm sorry. Chicago Transit Authority. I'm sorry, not Chicago Transit Union. Chicago Transit Authority. He was over CPS. I think he has something to do with CPS. And yeah, he's basically an insider in both the Rahm Emanuel and Daley administrations. Really good read. If you really want to know more about Daley's political power and how it differs from Old Man Daley, that's the book that will do it.
Okay, I'm on it right away, and I'll put the link down for you guys. The Daily Show. Is he still
Yeah.
friendly with Claypool? You think after this book or before this book?
I think they're cordial.
Okay.
I think he told. I mean, he told the truth on a lot of things and a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff where look put Daley in a bad image, but I think they're cordial. Just put it like that.
And it has really good reviews. It really does. It has really good reviews. Um,
Oh, you know what? I forgot about Claypool's time as the CEO of CPS.
I
You know,
remember that name.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
I stumbled upon the article about um, uh, some kind of ethics violation dealing with the school's attorney. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And it says he was the superintendent of the Chicago Park District as well, chief of staff to, that's where I know his name,
Right. That's right.
chief of staff
Right.
to Rahm Emanuel and president of the CTA. He also was a member of Barack Obama campaign's media team and a longtime partner of David Axelrod. Just so you know, that's on you guys' list. David Axelrod Rod and Mr. Cicero. I mean,
Yeah,
Mr. I'm sorry, not Cicero.
yeah. I mean, it looked like an interesting. I think I'm gonna pick this one up too.
Yeah, yeah. I got the link in the chat, you guys. If you want to check it out, it's a good
I'm
one.
still trying to. I mean, I've read this book a couple of months ago, but I'm still trying to chow down on Gardis recommendation books. I bought them all, and so I'm pretty much my reading plate is full for the next couple of months.
You do you know how many emails I get a day? They're like, okay, I heard Big Mike say this. I heard Gardis say this. Where can I order? Especially our girl Jazzy Steph. I think she orders every book you guys recommend. Shout out to Jazzy Steph. I know she's not here right now, but she orders every book. Um, they're recommending this book by by Gregory Pratt called The City is Up for Grabs: How Lightfoot led and lost a city in crisis. And you know Lori going to be in Dalton on Monday. So this is interesting. Hmm.
Hmm.
I will say about Lori Lightfoot, she's a fantastic attorney. She was a partner at Meyer Brown, one of the major international law firms based in Chicago. A
Yes.
fantastic attorney, but as mayor, um, I and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I just think that she wasn't really a great
Um.
That was the first law firm I worked at, Mayor Brown.
Oh, look at you.
mayor. It's pronounced Mayor Brown. I thought it was Meyer Brown.
No, it's Mayor. It's Mayor Brown.
Okay.
Trust me, I know. You know, yeah, Mayor Brown is at one time it was the largest law firm in Chicago. And still may be in the top three, but they had a lot of interesting political connections. So during the time I was there, oh God, I can't think of the name of the guy who was Robert. What is his name? He was basically the managing partner of the firm, and I remember I had to go fix his computer one time, and I saw on his phone. Now this is the late '90s. I saw on his phone he had Mayor Daley's number on speed dial.
Is it Robert Herzberg? No.
Mm, No,
Okay.
no, it wasn't him.
Mm.
Can't think of his name. Now there was another managing partner named Tyrone Fainer. He actually just recently passed. Um, he was another one who was very much politically connected um, to the to City Hall. I mean, Mayor Brown was very much connected into City Hall because a lot of the partners in there, they were the attorneys of a lot of a lot of the politicians or the businesses that the politicians were running. So when you think about the guy that I can't think of right now, who was the managing partner when I first got there, having Mayor Daley's number on speed dial, that's a significant thing. And not only that, Bill Daley used to actually be a partner at Mayor Brown as well. But there
Hmm.
was there was
Yep.
also there was also a another person who had a famous father um, that worked there, um, and we're talking about Jesse Jackson's son. Um, who was the one that worked there? Uh, can't think of his name right now, but it's not Jesse Jr. and it's not Jonathan.
Is it Youssef?
Youssef, yes, Youssef used to work there.
And
So
I just thought about something when you were talking. Uh, 'Cause, it just made me think about Lori Lightfoot running as a political outsider when she was actually the architect behind OPS as well as EMPRA under both the Daley administration and the administration before she ran for uh, mayor. But OPS stands for Office of Professional Standards, which is the It's the board that reviews police misconduct, which is now IPRA, and I think it's something different now. Sorry, Gardis, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If I
No, 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 no.
did.
I was done.
And this is a part we're gonna on our I have a list for Gardis and Big Mike because they're like a wealth of knowledge. They're just you can ask them anything. It just comes for them to know all this history. It's just amazing. I thank you both. We're gonna talk about the Jacksons because I want to know why they keep pushing Jesse Jackson in the front. I didn't even know about Youssef. You know, we just
Well,
pushed Jesse Jackson all the way to the front.
I
Junior,
felt
Jesse
bad for
Jackson
Jesse
Jr.
Jackson. I felt bad for Jesse Jackson Jr. He was really hoping that Biden would pardon him. He pardoned his whole family but him. Wow, I felt sorry for him.
Yeah, he has a show on WVON now.
He does. Now wait a minute. Is Jesse Jackson Jr. Wait a minute. Did they pardon Sandy?
No, they didn't pardon any of them. No, what I
No,
mean by family, I'm talking about Joe Biden pardoned his whole family, but didn't pardon
Oh yeah,
Jesse
his
Jackson
son,
Jr.
right? Hunter and okay, I get you. I get you. You're right. They were waiting on it. They were waiting on it. And yes, Jesse Jackson Jr. has a show on WVON, but they still use him as a political analyst. And this is something that I always think about, like the mental health situation. So we're gonna have to make that our next conversation as well, because that was quite a ride that Jesse Jackson Jr. and Sandy Jackson. For my eyes, I thought they were supposed to be like the Obamas, and then
No,
all of this
actually,
happened.
I mean, before the scandal, they could have possibly gotten there. Matter of fact, I always believed back then that if Jesse Jr. didn't get himself into trouble, he was probably the only person that had a chance of beating Richard M. Daley for mayor.
yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally 1000% agree on that. Yeah, he was the only one that had a strong shot. But I'll also add that I think Mel Reynolds could have been the first African American president. To be honest with you, and I know that sounds cliche today, but I felt like Mel Reynolds could have been the first. He was more like the Obama of 1990s. Rhodes Scholar, congressman, um, but then he got himself into some trouble with. He just can't leave kids alone. Let me just put it that way, and put it and leave it at that.
So Big Mike, I think for me, I guess the difference is between him and Obama, Mel Reynolds and Obama. So Obama kind of showed his face, on the activist scene, um,
Hmm.
and more, more kind of like grassroots work, being here. And I don't know if Mel Reynolds had that same appeal, on the grassroots
No,
level.
He was a political insider.
Okay.
He had the connections to the money that can elevate him to run a presidential campaign. Now he probably wouldn't have been successful in 2000, uh, but maybe 2008, maybe I don't know. I just me thinking out loud. Maybe he wouldn't be successful in running for president. I just thought that because of him having that insider connection, he may would have been a strong presidential candidate. Plus, his profile is really unique. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He I forgot what other schools he went to, but he just had a really nice profile. But I felt like when he had a lot of skeletons in his closet, like for instance, having relations with his campaign staffer that was underage. That
Hmm.
really killed him.
I remember growing up, we were told not to walk by past his house in Dalton, leaving
Oh, Mel
Thornridge.
Reynolds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leaving Dirksen or Thornridge. Yeah, they said don't walk past that house, and eventually it got tore down. And I guess that's what a storage facility. I don't know if you've been around lately, Big Mike, but it's a storage facility there now. Um, this is really interesting. I have any closing comments about Daley versus Daley, and this was just our chit chat about it. Um, oh, I have a question. It's on my list. I'm so sorry I forgot this. Um, why do you think? Do you think Daley, Richie Daley, was forced not to go another term, or do you think he just was tired because Maggie Daley had
No, he
passed
was
away?
forced.
I,
He
Okay.
was
I, I
forced.
agree. I agree. He was.
He was forced. With the hire truck scandal and all the scandals that was going on. Yeah, they probably told him that if you run, there's a possibility that you can be forced out of office. So leave voluntarily and put this all behind you. Let
I,
me just say this:
I
no
agree.
one's not going to willingly give up all that power.
I can't add anything to that. I think I agree with Mike's assessment.
And lastly, because I have such a list for you guys. Okay, so Richie Daley's son, he tried his hands at politics and failed. Do you guys recall that?
I
What was the
don't.
name of the son? Patrick Daly, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's the
Did he?
brother.
Oh, was that
That
the brother? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
his brother tried to run. It was I don't think it wasn't Patrick. It was
Bill
oh
Daly.
yeah, it was Bill Daley. Bill Daley tried to run, and
Mm.
Chicago's tired of Daley's right now.
And I also have on a list. I want to go over some of like these prestigious schools when we get closer to the school year because I've noticed that a lot of these people I dealt with it today. I was at the town hall meeting for Thornton Township, and they're challenging our state senator and his residency just off the cuff. And the names of the schools they were throwing out was so prestigious, you know what I mean? And when I look at these
What schools in particular?
St. Ignatius, great
Oh, you
school.
mean high schools? You mean high
Yeah.
schools?
Mount
Mhm.
Okay.
Carmel, like for Richard Daley's son, Mount Carmel. What's the other school that's on 31st in Michigan? That's another school they send
De
it.
La Salle.
Does that matter? Does where you send your kids matter? I think that's so. I would love to have that conversation with you guys. I just sent you guys in an email. Antoine Randall L. Who's is he related to Napoleon Harris? No, or is he just in Harvey Thornton Township?
Not that I know of.
Well, he's now going to be on the Bears coaching squad. And he actually, someone from a Randall L was running for office in Thornton Township. And I just thought that was a cool correlation. But they were mentioning the high school, like Thornwood alumni. Is it important? Like Richard Daley sending his kids to Mount Carmel. Did they even live near Mount Carmel?
Well, I mean, there's no residency restrictions for Catholic and private schools. Like you
Oh no,
can.
I don't mean that. I
Okay.
mean, how far did he have to what if they lived did Richard and Maggie live on the Gold Coast and they were like, you're going to Mount Carmel or you're going to De La Salle or you're going to it was this school Jones Academy, I think it was. Was that a good school? I can't remember. A
Yeah,
public school?
Jones is a public school.
Okay. Or you're gonna go to St. Martin de Porres. You're gonna go to a good school. Does high schools really matter? I would love to have a conversation with you guys because I've been going through the research of all these representatives and politicians and seeing where they went to school and where their kids went to school. And it's really, really cool um, to see the process.
Yeah, I would like to have that conversation as well because um my child goes to one of those schools. I also work with St. Ignatius as well. Um, my child doesn't go to St. Ignatius, but they go to another school. But no, I would like to have that conversation as well, along with some of the public schools and the magnet schools like Whitney Young. and Walter Payton.
Oh, because Michelle Obama went to Whitney Young, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's
Like
the one? Oh, I'm sorry.
how you guys missed the most important, the best private school in the state?
Who's that?
Y'all missed it. The University of Chicago Lab Schools.
Oh yeah,
That's the best.
Where is that at?
And
Big Mike. I
Hyde
never
Park.
heard of that.
it's in Hyde Park.
Oh yeah. Okay. Um. I was watching. If you guys didn't know, Lori Lightfoot, she did a documentary with a Chicago historian. He does Chicago is dope, and he had Lori Lightfoot on his channel, and she was talking about a public school called Marshall, right?
Yeah, that's on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying how they had the best women's coach ever. Like you didn't go there just for the. We talked about that with Ben. What was it? Ben. I'm so sorry.
Ben
Ben
Wilson.
Wilson.
Ben
Yeah.
Wilson. You didn't go there just for the academia. You went there because Gloria Gators.
Dorothy
Dorothy
Gators.
Gators. Dorothy
Mhm.
Gators was the coach. That's why you went to Marshall High School. And I was like, man, do people really think about the majority or the minority? Do they think about where they're sending their kids to school to excel? It's just watching a Daley story, watching the Jacksons, watching the Obamas. I've been noticing these schools and I'm like, wow. Morgan Park
I
too.
mean, so the schools. I don't know if that has much of an impact. I think college, where you go to college, or will have more of an impact than high school. I mean, I may be wrong. Again, I'm looking at it a from a different perspective. Uh, because I always thought that a person's connections and a person's brand starts at where they went to undergrad or where they went to graduate school.
Mm.
And also, um, when you look at when we talk about these private schools, a lot of people can't afford to send their kids to these schools. We're talking about like what 40, $50,000 tuition for U Chicago Lab,
Yes, it's like college tuition.
right? So, but I've seen people. There have been people who've been really great leaders in the community that went to public school, but they went to really good universities.
I think the conversation we probably want to have with, like, say, the high schools is how did some of these high schools decline? Um,
That's a
and-
perfect conversation to have.
yes, that's the conversation. And how did these high schools that were, on the verge of being in academic probation climb to, say, a level 1 school? That's probably more of a better conversation because I got, like being a Morgan Park alumnus. Um, I've got some stories and experiences that I can share on why Morgan Park is what it is now compared to what it was, when I was going in the late 80s when it was one of the better academic public schools on the south side of Chicago.
What would be your top three public schools in Chicago, if you could, off the top of your head?
Or are you referring to like academically?
Yeah, let's do academics. Yeah, and then let's do top three academic, top three sports.
Uh, Public school academically, obviously Walter Payton, Northside Prep, and I believe Whitney Young will be third academically, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken.
What about you, Big Mike?
Whitney on Jones commercial, and I haven't been to CPS in a long time. Walter Payton, Whitney Young, and Jones commercial. I'll be that will be my top three public schools. You said is it in Chicago? Can it be outside of Chicago, like in the
Yeah, you
south?
you can go outside of Chicago if you guys like. Yes.
Oh, Oh, New Trier High School. I put that on the list. So New Trier, Walter Payton, and Jones Commercial.
Oh, where's New Trier?
Winnetka.
Mm, okay. And what about for sports? Anywhere you guys want to go in Illinois?
I mean, Simeon still has a good basketball program. Um, as far as football, majority of the suburban public schools are probably better. But when when you're talking about like the Catholic League, you still got Mount Carmel, St. Rita. Those schools are kind of still, Thompson. But then you got Glenbrook North, which I think is a pretty good football school. But they also won a state championship in basketball as well a couple of years ago.
What about you, Big Mike? You know about sports in Illinois? Where would you top three?
I'm the wrong person to ask about sports. To be honest with you, in high school, I don't follow it. I don't follow it like I used to. Um, let me give you an example. Last time I followed sports was Derrick Rose was at Simeon. That was some time ago.
Well, I'm gonna shout out Reggie Hayward from Thorn Ridge. I think he was the last football person. We 1997 Haywood 97 Jacksonville Jaguars. We love you. I'm the same way, Big Mike. Now I have Miss Asia in the chat. She said Mount Carmel for football. Now, Big Mike and Gardis Watts, if you had a child into politics and you're in the Southland, what's the school you would send them to?
The South, define Southland. Are you talking about like south of Chicago, or you're talking about like the suburbs outside of Chicago?
You know what? You made it hard for me. Okay. You got a child that's into politics. They're like, you know what, Dad? I want to be a politician. Where in
Hmm.
Illinois high school would you send them?
That's an easy question for me. I'll send them to the University of Chicago laboratory schools, point blank, end of story. Arnie Duncan went there. The Obama's children went there. A couple of big names I can't remember off the top of my head went to the Chicago lab schools because they're a segue into Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Those students go to the best of the best universities where they get that education, not only the education, the network to be able to go for the big political positions.
Hmm. Um, I guess for me, I mean, Big Mike is not wrong on that. But I guess if I was to choose some secondary or another school, uh, that would that would also be a segue into politics. It would actually be a private school, and it would be the school that I said I work with, Saint Ignatius. When you think about Saint Ignatius, um, many businessmen, politicians have children that either went there or have gone there or currently go there. Look at the Daley. I think Bill Daley graduated from Saint Ignatius. So, and they're still getting that, they're still getting those connections through, small endowments from these alumni who used to go there. So, Ignatius would also be a school that you could probably consider.
Well, so then let me ask you this: uh, which so when you say politics, are you talking about local politics, national politics, state politics?
I don't know. If I was Tiffany Henyard, where would you send me? Don't answer that.
I I I
Dr.
would to the
Roosevelt.
guard. I'll send her to the Gardis School of Hard Knocks.
don't answer that. You guys are
No,
so funny.
I'll send her to Roosevelt School.
Scott said the straight to video on demand in Thornton Township. Village of Dalton. I'm sorry, video. Scott, I don't want to hear Dalton. Village of Dalton and Thornton Township meetings, all the education one can get from now how not to do things. And Miss Asia mentioned Marian Catholic. I wanted to go there so bad. Marian
My nephew
Catholic.
went there.
Oh, I wanted that bumper sticker from my parents so bad. Dang it.
So so if you go to and here's what's interesting about Marian Catholic. There's a boarding school called Glenwood Boys and Girls in Glenwood, Illinois. They
Hmm.
accept everybody from you don't have
Uh-oh. I can't hear Big Mike. Is he there?
Yeah, I know he got cut off.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
What I was saying is that I had a nephew that went to Marian Catholic High School, but he was also a part of Glenwood Boys and Girls, which is a boarding school in Glenwood, Illinois, that accepts children that come from modest means. And you don't necessarily have to live in Glenwood to go there. You can live in Dalton and go there. And if you do well in your elementary school years, they will pay for you to go to Marian Catholic. You don't have to pay for anything. They will put the bill for the tuition.
Wow, that is a blessing.
And they're not selective at all. They accept anybody that can demonstrate that they come from modest means. You just have to live on the campus.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to have this educational talk because I think this is important. And I know I done held you guys on. We've been long-winded 2 hours, but can I ask you this question? And this was on my list. Do you think the Daley name would sustain time? So let's say uh Richie Daley, great great grandson, says, I want to run for mayor of Chicago. Could he do what Richie Daley did for what old man Daley did for Richie and just hang on to the legacy? What do you guys think? That what would need to happen for that to happen?
Chicago's too polarizing.
Uh, hmm. I
That's a good
think the
question.
thing, yeah, it is. But I think what has probably has to happen is, and it probably goes into the example of Richie Daley, because many had accused him of just hanging on to his father's name. But I think if you strike at the right time, and take a lesser position, like a congressman or senator or something like that, and be involved somehow in Chicago and kind of rebrand the name Daley. Um, I think there's a possibility, like say another Daley could win, but it's got to be some work behind it. I think the name itself is not going to garner you the election, as we saw in Bill Daley's run or attempted run in the last Chicago mayor's race, which to me, I think anybody could have won. And that's probably one of the reasons why Brandon Johnson won, because it was so much up in the air. There was like really not like a very strong candidate that was running seriously in this race. And that, to me, that also includes Lori Lightfoot, who was the incumbent. So there has to be an opportunity for them to win. Now, if there's like a strong candidate at that point, an incumbent who's doing very well in the mayor's race, it doesn't matter if old man Daley comes back from the grave and runs. He's not going to get that seat.
You
Okay.
know, and that's interesting. I actually thought Tony Prewinkle was a strong candidate when she ran against Lori Lightfoot. And I actually voted for Tony Prewinkle, by the way.
A
Hmm.
lot of people thought Tony was gonna win. They really did. Yeah.
I did not expect Lori Lightfoot to win by a landslide the way she did against Tony Prewinkle. I know we're off topic, but I did not expect that.
I think the problem with Tony Preckwinkle is that she in that race where Lori won, she started going into a lot of mudslinging, which was not her forte. And I was kind of disappointed in her when she started doing that. Because like observing her, I've never seen her kind of like, and maybe I might be wrong. Big Mike, you might correct me. He she didn't necessarily have to mudsling in any of her races for the Cook County Board or president or anything like that. So, or
Well,
even as
that
all.
that had that's because I mean, for the Cook County Board president, she ran against Todd Schroeder. And Todd Schroeder, I mean, he was running off the fame of his father, John Schroeder,
Mm-hmm.
and so Todd Schroeder had really no. He wasn't a strong candidate. So Tony didn't really have to go the route that she did with the mayor's race. But I agree with you though. Um, now that I think about it, but boy was I hurt. I was hurt.
Do you
I
like her
remember
as cook?
watching.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh wait, we can't hear you, Big Mike. Can you repeat?
I said I was at the institute. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I could. We
Yes.
can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I was at the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago campus watching that race, and I was like, God dang. Hmm. But to answer your question, Burgundy, do I think that she? You mentioned it. Do I think she was a good Cook County Board president?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yes and no. I know that's not really the answer. Not really a straightforward answer. I mean, there's some things I did not like the soda tax, um, the penny per ounce soda tax. Well, did she implemented it? Did she implement? It's no longer in in use, but I didn't like that. I didn't like how she. I mean, there's a lot of things that I didn't like, but there's also a lot of good things that I like about her administration, especially when it came down to the Cook County hospitals in terms of transparency.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get off uh in a
Okay.
couple of minutes. So
Yeah. I'll let you both go. Like I said, we've been long winded. Last question. Did you guys know that Daley and Daley were not the only father and son duo, right? In 1893, we had Carter Harrison and his son, father and son, but Carter Harrison was killed by an opponent seeking office. We'll continue this later. And that was in 1893. So he got assassinated, and we'll continue this later because I know everybody got to go because we none of us we all was trying to cramp in our schedule, and I just wanted to put that in there.
No,
So
I mean, I just
mhm.
had to pick up my grandkids. So
No,
like,
you guys are good. Uh, yeah, Gardis, you're free to go whenever. Big Mike, if you want to talk about Carter for 2 more minutes, we're here.
sure, I
all
mean, I have all night.
right, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
You too,
Appreciate the
Gardis.
conversation.
Enjoy, and thanks for coming by.
All right.
All right, Gardis, what I gotta do my Shay voice. Gardis Watts, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, really quick. So it was a mayor of Chicago, way before our time. We weren't even thought of Big Mike, and his name was Carter Harrison. And
Mhm.
he actually was Carter Harrison the third, and he became the mayor of Chicago from 1893, right? April 17th of 1893 to October 28th of 1893. He was in office, right?
Mhm.
Um, but this is the part that caught my eye. He strived to become the mayor. But in October 28th of 1893, a few months into his fifth term, in just 2 days, he did 5 terms. And just 2 days before the close of the World's Columbian Exposition, Harrison was murdered in his home by Patrick Eugene Pendergrass, an office seeker who had supported Harrison's reelection under the idea that Harrison would reward him with an appointment to a post within his mayoral administration. And he's over there in Graceland Cemetery, which on my channel, you guys, we took a tour of Graceland Cemetery. Make sure you check it out because there's a lot of notables there. That was years ago, probably before you guys even heard of Burgundy. Um, but his son became the mayor too. Um, Carter Harrison, the let me see if I have it. Did you hear of them?
No,
Hear
this
of
is the
him?
first time I heard. This is
Yeah,
the
this
first time I
is.
heard of Carter.
Oh yeah, this is. I was looking for father son duos in history, and I came across them. And so Carter Harrison, his son, he was assassinated. Like I cannot wait for we talk about Mayor Cermak because I knew nothing about that. I swear. And I'll let you go. I'm so sorry. I just thought this was so
No,
interesting.
you're fine. I mean, I love coming on your live and educating and learning from Gardis, learning from you. Um, this really, I was looking forward to this, so no need to apologize.
Thank you. Okay, so this I love this site. You guys, it's called Chicagoology. I don't know if you heard of it, but Carter Henry Harrison, mayor of Chicago, he was shot at his residence. He lived at 231 Ashland Boulevard at 8:07 at night. He died at 8:47. And it's all because he didn't give Eugene what he promised him. We hear a lot about that. Okay?
That's how it was back in the days. Like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. There was nothing in writing, and then you get elected, and you don't give me uh, what you say that you was gonna give me, and now I feel betrayed, so I kill you. And that's how I think that's what happened with William McKinley, the president of the United
Mm,
States at that time.
wow. And like I said, we have to go over not just him, but what you were saying about I'm flabbergasted about the bullet being for was it for Roosevelt at the time?
Yeah, it was an attempted assassination attempt. I was redundant in my sentence. I apologize. It was an assassination attempt on Roosevelt, and Cermak unintentionally got in the way, and he was killed.
Mm, that is just that's something. He was in Florida when it happened. He wasn't even here, right?
Yeah, he was accompanying the president.
Mm, mm, mm. So his son became mayor of Chicago afterwards, but this is what Chicago. This house right here, I have no idea that address, but that looks like it's over there. Where's that famous architect that did all the Van? No, hold on, I got his name wrong. Architects of Chicago. What's his name?
Dan
Is
Burnham.
it? No, he's over there by where the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, was from, Oak Park. Is it the? I don't know
Oh,
why his name.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yes, this is like this house is over here. So this is where he was assassinated at. And his son became the mayor. So this is he came back after his father was assassinated. And he also became the mayor in 1911. So he took time. He had to become of age, had to go through everything. In 1897, he won the election to be three consecutive. Back then, it was 2 year terms. Now we have 4 year terms. But like his father, Harrison did not believe in trying to legislate morality, and he lasted 3 terms. But this is the second father son, the first father son duo. I just wanted to make sure people knew it just wasn't Daley and Daley. It was Harrison and Harrison back then.
Yeah,
So
I
some
didn't know that. This is
yep,
something
Carter
that
Harrison the third and Carter Harrison the first. Fourth. I didn't even know these were mayors of Chicago's to to do anything with, but it was very interesting to find.
was this during the time of the Chicago fire.
After the Great Chicago Fire, he became involved in politics. Right after. Yep.
Oh wow.
That's another subject we have to talk about. It's really interesting. So much. And Big Mike, can I ask you something about Dalton history, if you don't mind?
Sure. Oh no, I don't mind. I when I say sure, that means yes, I might. Don't, but I gotta get used to that. But no, I don't mind.
I'm the same way. I'd be like, sure. Did you know the Kruger family that
The
own
Kruger family.
Nick's sports page? But they also Mayor Kruger in Dalton. He was a mayor back in the 1800s.
No, that's taking me way out of my.
No, I just was wondering because Nick's Sports Page was a place I frequent growing up. And I was just wondering if you knew any of the descendants of the Krugers. And then secondly, do you recall anyone from the Mr. Horny that owned Value Village, any of his descendants at all?
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah. My last question is I need to call the Elder Creighton because I need to hear from Miss Felita. I haven't seen her at any of the board meetings. And
You're not going to see her at the
I,
board meetings
I
for the
understand.
reason.
Hmm?
The reason is because I mean, so I used to attend the board meetings
Mm-hmm.
with her. I know I didn't go with her to the board meetings, but I used to have various conversations with her late husband,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to be regular attendees at Dalton board meetings, and they used to speak a lot at these meetings. Uh, Ever since her husband passed away, she's been more involved in the school board.
Okay.
So if you go to like Thornton Township District 205 school board,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see her there. And I think she was contemplating. I know her son is running for a spot on the school board. Edward Creighton.
Is he still? I love, I call him Ethan, but I love him. Is he still running?
Yeah, from what I gathered, yes, he's still running for that seat.
Okay, I would love to support him any way I can. I saw only
Mhm.
one flyer about him, and I absolutely adore Edward Creighton. I really do.
And,
Wow.
yeah, and so you won't see her at the and then also with all this mess that's going on with with this whole thing with Tiffany Henyard, um, she's basically is going to keep a low profile and stay out of that and just focus on the school district, which I agree. Like
I do too.
all this attention on Dalton, but we're not focusing on where the bulk of our tax dollars go, which is to the school districts. What's
Mhm.
going on there? What's the government like there? And last time I was involved with the school district, they were trying to turn Thornridge into a freshman center.
What?
Oh,
Wow.
you didn't know that? Yeah, that was back in
No.
2011. There was a board that had voted to turn Thornridge into a freshman center and then make Thornton and Thornwood.
Oh, you went out, Big Mike. You went out again. I see you moving, but we
I'm
can't
sorry,
hear. Oh,
sorry,
there you
sorry,
go. We hear you
sorry
now.
about that. It's I don't know what with this technology, but what I'm saying is that Thornridge was so the board at that time had voted to turn Thornridge into an all freshman center, and then
Mhm.
they were going to make Thornton and Thornwood, the upperclassmen. And Ronnie Lewis was against it. Ronnie Lewis was the mayor at the time. He was
Mhm.
against it. A lot of people were against it, and
Mhm.
so they ran Elder Creighton against Carl King, who was the board president,
Mhm.
and they also ran a couple of other people. But I know Kenny Williams' wife, Tony Williams,
Okay.
also was on that ticket, and they ended up beating those guys, and they stopped it from turning into an all freshman center. But they got an $18 million grant from the Obama Department of Education to try to implement an all freshman center, and that's what they were trying to do.
Wow. Quick question: is Miss Jackson still on the board?
Miss
But
Jackson.
Bo Jackson's sister, Sand. I think it's who was. See, I would never. She was my gym
Oh, I
teacher.
know who you talk. I know who you're talking about. She was never on the board. She was the athletic director.
Oh, got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.
She
Okay.
she she took over T.J. Shirley, who passed away in 2012.
Coach Shirley, rest in peace. Isn't that something? Wow. Okay, so we got some history going on. Big Mike, I appreciate you. I got 4 questions that people emailed me. I'm gonna send these questions to you and Gardis so we could come back next week if you have time.
I just let me know the time, the place, or the place to be on my. I'm on my phone and talking, and I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm going to be on my computer because in and out that's going on, and the technology. I'd rather stay on my laptop with this. But yeah, just let me know the time, the date, and yeah, we can get this set up.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you so much for just expounding on everything for us and bringing clarity to the history in Chicago, Southland, Illinois politics. And enjoy your night. Thank you so much.
No problem. Before you go, I just have one question.
You can have as many as you want. I'm here.
I've been trying to be a member of your channel, and I've just been having really difficult time. I was trying to be a member of Conscious channel, and I'm just having. Maybe it's because I'm not seeing the right icon or whatnot, but I just wanted to be like a member.
You know what? I'm gonna email you
So
because I be trying to do the same thing on other people's channels, but it's like when we're live, it don't show up. But I think you have to go to our homepage or something weird. So I'll send you
mhm.
the links to me and Conscious both.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, definitely, and then I'll be registered to become a member.
Thank you so much, Big Mike. And look, I feel bad doing it because my membership stuff is you on it. I'm like, here, if you want to hear Big Mike, is go to the membership. So thank you, Big Mike. I appreciate you.
No problem at all. Yeah, just any time, just let me know, and I'll hop on here and you know enjoy the talk and add some education.
Thank you so much. You have a great night.
You as well. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Man, Gardis Watts and Big Mike. So you guys know we've been on live since what 8:30 this morning. So I'm like super tired. I've had the last of my coffee for the evening. So I probably won't sleep because I'll be hyped up. But um thank you, you guys, for the people listening. I know that I'm going to make a playlist with Gardis and Big Mike for everyone to enjoy and listen to this history. Forgive me for not having as much. These brothers have intellect. They are me. I'm sitting over here like a loaf of bread, a stick of butter, a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, a stick of butter. I'm like Sesame Street. But I learned so much, and I hope that you guys are learning with me. This history is important to when we see what's going on in politics today, especially when we see the township. Look how many of you guys watched me today struggle stream what was going on with them contesting an address for our state senator. These are things that just elongates the process, taxpayer dollars, things of that nature. We have to just look at the history to maybe even see how things will pan out. I just thought about it. This may be a good video before the 31st when we talk about Napoleon. Maybe how many people addresses have been contested in the Southland or in Illinois politics and go from there. I appreciate you guys joining us for the Daily versus Daily event. And I'll see you next time. Thank you again, Gardis Watts. Thank you again, Big Mike. I'm holding up my desk with my knee because the drawer just fell. So if you heard a boom, that's what it was. I appreciate you guys so much. As always, take care of yourself and each other. Goodbye.